Early morning in the kitchen, Myra Kinney prepares her breakfast. A plain bagel from a local shop, toasted just right. After she finishes eating, with a click of a button,
okay, I'm gonna watch a show.
She turns on the TV.
Okay, she's not hearing this.
But hearing loss has stripped away the enjoyment of these activities.
I have been wearing hearing aids now for, I would say, 8 years probably.
And it's something her family has dealt with for generations.
We have nerve damage, is the kind of hearing loss that my family had.
Ocala Hears audiologist Dr. Evan Pemba says hearing loss can be hereditary or caused by loud noises such as music or guns.
A lot of my patients are veterans. The typical veteran was around loud ordinances, explosions, gunfire, et cetera, et cetera.
Ron Inman knows this feeling well.
Being on a submarine, exposing to constant pressure changes and loud noises.
He says he remembers losing his hearing and asking his doctor if it could be service-related.
He said, we can write it up and see what happens, and so that's what we did, and the VA absolutely recognized it as a condition.
Dr. Pemba says for most patients, the problem isn't that they can't hear.
It's that they cannot understand, because typical hearing loss is high pitch in nature. And it's the high pitches that are responsible for clarity and understanding.
That's where hearing aids come in and save the day.
When we give them access to that clarity and detail type information, that's going to help them with regard to communicating better, with regard to remembering, because now they're hearing the information, and it's also going to make them come out of their shell.
Ron says there were times when he felt alienated when he couldn't hear.
There were a lot of times where I would sit in silence because I can't understand what you're saying. I don't know what you're saying. I don't want to say something stupid.
A recent study by the Alzheimer's Association shows hearing aids reduce cognitive decline in older adults with some kind of hearing loss by about 50%.
Hearing loss contributes to dementia because we hear with our brain, okay? And so when that brain isn't getting adequate auditory stimulation, it's like a muscle. If that muscle isn't getting a good enough workout, it's going to atrophy. And so when it atrophies, that can contribute to dementia.
Dr. Pemba says it's important to see an audiologist and get the right hearing aids too.
When looking into hearing aids, I always say to patients, think about what would happen if you went to your hip doctor and your hip doctor was to say to you, I can fit you with this hip that I know will do the job, or I can fit you with this so-so hip, okay? That's exactly the same thing with hearing aids. We can fit you with a hearing aid that we know will do the job, or we can fit you with a so-so hearing aid or a so-so hip, I would never go with a so-so hip.
Myra didn't go with the so-so option. She found her hearing aid match. Her aids help her continue doing tasks she loves, like baking.
If you're, say, making a cake and you say, how much flour? And they say, oh, you don't put flour. And I go put 5 cups of flour in. I've made a mess.
She's found tricks to help her hear so she can keep her mind sharp.
I run around with a timer because I can then make sure I hear, make sure I see, because my seeing helps me to understand if it's time for me to take something out.
She's also figured out how to connect her hearing aids to this Bluetooth device to hear the sound of the TV through her hearing aids, allowing her family to communicate and connect.
My family, number one, can hear me.
Especially her son.
My son is quite nice. He says, Mom, do you have hearing aids on?
And they allow Myra to simply live normal.
Hearing aids have been quite a boon for me. It makes it easier for me to function.
Like they say in the audiology world.
If you don't hear it, how are you expected to remember?
Hearing aids are giving Myra and Ron a more thoughtful, communicative life every day. Kennedy Mason, WUFT News.